In the autumn of 1726, the King of England's own physicians traveled to a small town in Surrey to watch a poor woman give birth to rabbits. Her name was Mary Toft. She was a poor, illiterate woman from Godalming, married to a journeyman cloth worker and living in a market town about 30 miles southwest of London. In September of 1726, after a recent miscarriage, Toft began producing animal parts from her body, pieces of flesh, portions of rabbit, and eventually what appeared to be whole skinned rabbits during painful episodes that looked to the people in the room like labor. The first person with medical credentials to examine her was John Howard, a surgeon and man midwife from nearby Guildford. Howard watched the deliveries, collected specimens, and became convinced that something extraordinary was happening. He wrote to contacts in London. Within weeks, the story had reached the royal court. King George I took the claim seriously enough to send two men, Nathaniel St. Andre, surgeon to the royal household, and Samuel Molyneux, secretary to the Prince of Wales. They arrived in Guildford in mid-November and were told Toft was in labor again. St. Andre watched what he believed was another rabbit delivery, took specimens back to London, and declared the case genuine. To understand why educated physicians did not immediately walk out of the room, you have to picture medicine in 1726. Doctors could not see inside a living body. They had no stethoscope, no imaging, and no reliable way to separate one internal process from another. Diagnosis depended on what the patient said and what the doctor could observe from outside: pulse, skin, swelling, pain, and whatever appeared in front of him. There was also a medical theory that made Toft's story sound less impossible than it sounds now. It was called maternal impression. Many physicians and ordinary readers believed that a pregnant woman's imagination, fears, cravings, or sights could physically mark the child in her womb. Toft said she had chased a rabbit in a field while pregnant, then dreamed of rabbits obsessively. Inside that theory, the rabbit was not only a prop, it looked like an explanation. The court physicians were under pressure too. The king had sent them. Returning empty-handed meant contradicting a royal curiosity and admitting they had wasted the crown's time. Confirming the marvel could make a reputation. So St. Andre confirmed it, and he prepared a written defense for publication. Not everyone accepted it. Cyriacus Ahlers, another surgeon sent by the king, examined the rabbit remains and noticed something wrong. The specimens showed signs that the animals had eaten straw or grain. They had been feeding like rabbits in the world. They had not grown in a womb. Ahlers reported his doubts, but St. Andre had already gone public. In late November, Toft was brought to London, to a rented room at a bathhouse near Leicester Fields, where she could be watched more carefully. Sir Richard Manningham, one of the most respected physicians in the city, took charge of the case. The stakes were now public. Pamphlets were circulating. London was fascinated. Satirists were already sharpening their pens. Under close watch in London, Toft produced no more rabbits. After several days of observation and mounting suspicion, a porter at the bathhouse was caught trying to bring a rabbit into her room. On the 7th of December, 1726, Mary Toft confessed. She admitted the fraud had been staged. Dead rabbits and animal parts had been obtained and inserted before examinations. The pain had been real. The performance had been real too. What collapsed in London was the claim that the rabbits had been born. The fallout was immediate and uneven. Toft was arrested and imprisoned. She was eventually released in the spring of 1727 because the courts could not settle on what crime she had actually committed. She returned to Godalming and lived out the rest of her life in obscurity. She was buried there in 1763. The doctors paid a different price. Nathaniel St. Andre's career was ruined, and he became a permanent punchline. Hogarth published a savage satirical print showing physicians crowded around Toft like credulous fools, with rabbits scattered through the scene. Pamphlets mocked learned men who had chosen confidence over observation because doubt would have cost them status. The skeptics came out differently. Ahlers, Manningham, and the anatomist James Douglas emerged with their reputations intact or strengthened. The scandal became a public demonstration that authority and evidence were not the same thing. Mary Toft's story is strange, but the deepest strangeness is not the rabbits. A poor, illiterate woman briefly held power over some of the most educated men in England because her story fit a theory they already trusted. They did not believe her because they were stupid. They believed her because doubt was expensive. Admitting the fraud meant admitting failure in front of the king, the public, and their rivals. So they kept examining, kept publishing, kept defending, until a porter with a rabbit made belief more dangerous than doubt. 300 years later, that calculation still feels familiar. When the cost of being wrong feels higher than the cost of being fooled, people can keep believing the impossible, especially when their authority depends on it.